Welcome everybody to an extra module to the CIRF report that was conducted yesterday at the time of this recording. It was conducted on August 5th, 2020. The material here in this report is how to live in the yin state, how to be a better yin person. The model that we're going to be using is called IM2. It stands for Inspirational Achievement Model. And I'm using one of my slideshows for this. I'm going to be scrolling through those slides momentarily. But the reason why we're doing this is to instruct how to be, what it means to behave in a more of a yin state. As we know, kind of the archetype of yin and yang, that yin is more of the female side of things. And Carl Jung postulated that we have both male and female, masculine and feminine properties in us. We have the yin and the yang. If you're only one side or the other, then you're not living the full complement of life. And so I think a lot of people in the Western hemisphere or the Western countries are a little bit more yang strong. We're expected to be doing stuff or else we are considered lazy. And then the people more in the Eastern societies, or maybe that might be trending differently now, but traditionally they've been more of the yin states and more of going inward and quiet time and that sort of thing. And it looks like, to a Westerner, laziness, but it is all about relaxation. It's about receiving. It's more than just... in one of my slides, I have a list of all of the differences on the two polar extremes of yin and yang, but the intent of this one is just to really focus in on the yang side. So without further ado, I want to show you what this model is just really briefly. It basically states that we all have this life swing, and on the right side of the screen, let me get my pointer out. On the right side of the screen, it's brighter, and thus this is the yang side of the swing. And then on the darker side, this is the yin side. And if you're only living on the yang side of life, you're going to collapse at some point. You're going to run out of energy. The yin side is about receiving energy, rejuvenating, and there's a lot more goals of yin state, such as inspiration. But the model itself, the yin and the yang together, is about creativity, it's life satisfaction, but in reality is just getting in tune with your body, because your life swing is what this thing is called, transitions day in and day out between yin and yang. And so when it's going into yin, these states are maybe emotional or maybe very lethargic, then we need to actually behave in the yin state. So the CIRF report, the last CIRF report done on August 5th, 2020, suggested that the solution for this next week from Thursday to Wednesday, it suggested being more yin. And that's kind of ironic because yin is a being sort of state. So let me get into the slideshow and get straight to the whole point of this discussion. I wanted to show you that model. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. This is the doing side. A lot of people don't have any problem with the doing, but they have a problem with being. In other words, if so some of the hallmark features of having problems just being are that maybe you get restless pretty easy, or maybe you're impatient, or maybe you have to use some sort of medication or drug to get you to relax some. Some people use alcohol, some people use weed, some people get prescribed benzodiazepines. And if you need some of those things, those aren't wrong, but in general, in terms of this model, you're destroying your natural swing. And the problem with a lower swing in this model is that you have less creativity and less life satisfaction and less color in your life. So the idea behind the IM2 model is to go actually higher states into the more of extreme of being and the more extreme of doing when the time calls for it. So what is SAVOR? I mentioned that yesterday in the CIRF report. SAVOR is the acronym, but just think of the word itself. Being is savoring. And how do you savor something without being aware and being in that moment? Imagine, savoring a delicious cake, or if you're a meat eater, a red meat prepared exactly how you like that, and maybe a fine dining environment. That's savoring it. You're not off thinking about something else. You're not busy doing something. You're in that experience completely. And that's what being is. And remember what the goals are of being. The being is rejuvenating and inspiration. So you get a creative insights. You get inspired by receiving. So savor is a great word, not even withstanding the acronym. But it does stand for something. The S stands for surrender. Surrender to what? Well, surrender to the moment. Surrender your will to do. It's about being more vulnerable, which is another word, hint with the V. But surrendering is not surrendering to anything or anyone. It's just surrendering metaphorically, analogously to just surrendering your will, surrendering your ego. It's about becoming vulnerable in that exact moment. Surrender. Then the A is awareness. If you notice in the doing states, it's much better, and it occurs naturally when you're doing something very well. You're extremely focused. Your mind really hones in like a laser on the task or the goal you're supposed to achieve. Well, this is the opposite. If focusing is going less awareness or heightened state of attention, in savor, in being, in yin, we're opening our awareness. So we're opening our five senses, and some postulate there's 54 senses, whatever model that you'd like to open up there. But the more is better. That's the whole point of being, is opening your awareness. And it's not just on or off, it's a degree. So that implies that no matter how good at being aware you are, like all your five senses at once, which can get pretty overwhelming, even if you're good at that, you can get even better. And it's something that you can always work for the rest of your life, opening your mindful awareness. So awareness opens. Awareness to what? Well, anything and everything, yes, but you may have something more specific. But anytime you're restricting your focus, that's sort of going away from the being mode. So to be a pure yin state, it's about opening your awareness. Then the V, as I stated before, stands for vulnerable. And vulnerability is exactly what it says. The epitome of a yin state is sleep. And sleep is the epitome of being vulnerable. That would be a very extreme sensation of yin, because what are you receiving? You're rejuvenating. And with dreams, you're even getting potentially inspired and being creative. And a lot of songs were made from dream material. The urban legend is the Beatles. I think it was John Lennon, I believe. Could be wrong on that one. Paul McCartney, maybe. He woke up from a dream with a song in his head, and then just started playing it on the piano. It was directly from his dream. So you're getting creative, potentially inspired, but vulnerable is the key here in the V. The vulnerable is, technically you're a sitting duck when you're sleeping. There is really no other time that you're more vulnerable as a human being than when you're asleep. But you don't have to go to sleep to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is maybe sharing emotions to your people that you trust. Vulnerability is being more transparent. It's not, it doesn't have an agenda. It is much more going with the flow. And so vulnerable. Whoops. O stands for open. Open to what? Open to just about everything. And, a lot of people who talk about, especially like the vulnerability and the open in more of like an abusive situation or a hostile situation, the wrong answer would be to just suck it up and just stay in that situation. I mentioned that in the CIRF report, is that you owe it to yourself to get to an environment to where you can be vulnerable. And so, vulnerability is implied by a sensation of feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. If you're not in a safe enough position, your body might try to be vulnerable or try to go to sleep, but it's not going to let it. Open means getting to a place or an environment where you can be open and accepting for whatever life throws at you. And it is more of a mindset in this case. Open is, if someone's suggesting something or their opinion, how quickly are you, kind of fighting that or resisting it? Resistance feels like tension. And then, so that's the great segue to R is relax. I mentioned tension. Relaxation is the opposite. The only way to not waste energy while you're in yin is to eliminate tension in your muscles. This last one, the R, is the physical component of savor, because wherever your mind goes, your body follows. And so if you're mentally resisting something, it will come out in your body somehow. So one of your muscles, even if you don't, even if you're not aware of it, your muscles will begin to tighten up. And so purposefully relaxing is part of receiving, rejuvenating, being inspired, and ultimately the yin state. So I know that this model and explaining the whole model as a whole could take hours. I've done I think it was a 2-hour version of this for bipolar. And, I'm going to be doing some more work with this and some webinars, but I wanted to show you the yin state at its epitome and why we would do such a thing. And remember why. Why are we doing it? For rejuvenation and inspiration. But the problem with yin is if you're expecting some sort of return, then you may get let down. So you have to have, it's like a goalless goal, if there is such a thing. It's in the back of your mind. There's a reason of why you're doing this yin state, but don't be expecting these returns. Don't be expecting to be rejuvenated or inspired, because you probably won't get it, because expectation implies not fully relaxing, not being fully vulnerable. So anyway, this coming week, savor each experience. Oh, one more thing to cover is in this weird, it's not weird, but obviously a lot of us are going to be having to do stuff and working. And so can you savor the experiences while you're actually doing? Yes, you can. Obviously, sometimes you're not going to be fully vulnerable and obviously not fully relaxed. But the key here is, if you're going to do the overall context of this week as a yin state, is only use the muscles while you're doing things, such as, if you're driving your car, for example, only employ the muscles that are required to turn the steering wheel, flip on the turn signal, and stop and go with your foot. And all the other muscles, try to relax those. So at least you're getting some sort of relaxation in there, some sort of savor. And then don't be thinking off into the past or the future. Be fully present. So notice how far you're turning the steering wheel. That's your awareness. Be in the present moment awareness, the here and now. All right. Hope that helps. Comment below. Questions below are always warranted. And have a great week. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys and girls.